Australia is home to more venomous snake species than any other continent on Earth. Of its roughly 170 snake species, approximately 100 are venomous, a proportion that exists nowhere else in the world. But within this extraordinary collection of dangerous animals, two species stand apart for reasons that have made them famous far beyond the borders of the continent they inhabit: the inland taipan, the eastern brown snake. One of them holds the title of the most venomous snake in the world, measured by the gold standard of laboratory toxicity testing. No snake's venom is more toxic drop for drop. The other is responsible for more human deaths from snakebite than any other snake species in Australia, and arguably contributes more to snakebite mortality in Australia than all other species combined. These two facts together create one of the most counterintuitive puzzles in the natural world. The most venomous snake on Earth is not the snake that kills the most people. Understanding why requires exploring everything that separates these two species: their evolutionary origins, their habitats, their behavior, their venom, and their very different relationships with the human populations that share their continent. Both the inland taipan and the eastern brown snake belong to the family Elapidae, the same family as cobras, mambas, and coral snakes, and both are members of the extraordinary independent radiation of elapid snakes that colonized Australia and evolved in isolation over millions of years. This isolation produced an elapid fauna of unparalleled toxicity, a fact that many scientists believe reflects the intense evolutionary arms race between Australian snakes and their prey species, which co-evolved alongside increasingly potent venom. The inland taipan, Oxyuranus microlepidatus, belongs to the genus Oxyuranus. The taipans, a genus of exceptionally venomous Australian elapids. There are three recognized species of taipan: the coastal taipan, the inland taipan, and the western desert taipan described in 2007. The inland taipan was first described to science in 1879, then largely forgotten by Western researchers for nearly a century. It was so rarely encountered in its remote habitat that some herpetologists doubted historical accounts of its existence. It was formally rediscovered and studied in earnest only in the 1970s. The inland taipan is also known by several other common names: the fierce snake, the small-scaled snake, and in some Aboriginal traditions, the Dandarabilla, though the description fierce refers to the potency of its venom rather than to its temperament, which is, as we will see, considerably more reserved than the name implies. The eastern brown snake, Pseudonaja textilis, belongs to the genus Pseudonaja, the brown snakes, a group of approximately 9 species distributed across Australia, New Guinea, and nearby islands. The eastern brown snake is by far the most medically significant member of this genus and one of the most studied venomous snakes in the world, precisely because of its role in human snakebite deaths. It is found across a vast range in eastern and central Australia, from Cape York Peninsula in Queensland south through New South Wales, Victoria, and into South Australia, an enormous geographic distribution that places it in close contact with the majority of Australia's human population. The eastern brown snake is also known as the common brown snake, a name that reflects both its abundance and its wide distribution, though common does little justice to the medical significance of encountering one. Despite both being medium-sized brown Australian elapids at first glance, the inland taipan and the eastern brown snake differ considerably in their physical characteristics once examined closely. The inland taipan is a moderately large snake by Australian standards. Adults typically measure between 1.5 and 1.9 meters in total length, with occasional exceptional individuals recorded at up to 2.5 meters, though such lengths are genuinely rare in wild populations. The body is slender but muscular, well adapted for active pursuit of prey across open terrain. One of the inland taipan's most distinctive characteristics is the striking seasonal color change it undergoes, a biological adaptation to its extreme desert environment. During winter, the inland taipan scales darken considerably, shifting from the olive or yellowish brown of summer to a much darker, almost blackish brown. This darkening is believed to maximize heat absorption during cooler months when ambient temperatures drop significantly in the arid interior, a thermoregulatory adaptation that is unusual even by Australian snake standards. The head is relatively long and narrow, the eyes are moderately large with round pupils, typical of diurnal hunters, and the scales are notably small compared to many other snakes of similar size, which contributes to the species name Microlepidotus, meaning small-scaled. The eastern brown snake is generally a somewhat smaller and more slender animal than the inland taipan. Adults typically measure between 1.2 and 1.8 meters, with large individuals occasionally approaching 2 meters. The body is very slender, almost wiry in appearance, which reflects the eastern brown snake's status as an exceptionally fast-moving snake. Its speed and agility when alarmed are legendary among Australian herpetologists and emergency responders. The coloration, as the common name suggests, is predominantly brown, but the specific shade varies enormously across the species range, from pale cream or light tan through mid-brown to very dark brown or occasionally almost black. Juveniles are distinctive. They hatch with a banded pattern of dark brown crossbands on a lighter background, plus a distinctive orange or reddish marking behind the head, a coloration so different from the adult form that juvenile eastern brown snakes have historically been misidentified as different species entirely. As the snake matures over the first few years of life, this juvenile pattern fades and the adult uniform coloration gradually appears. Both species share the smooth, glossy scales and slender body proportions typical of many Australian elapids. Both have the relatively small, streamlined heads characteristic of species that pursue active prey rather than ambushing it, and both have round pupils, a feature of diurnal snakes that reflect their primarily daytime hunting activity. The contrast in habitat and distribution between these two species is fundamental to understanding why the more venomous snake kills fewer people than the less venomous one. The inland taipan occupies one of the harshest and most remote environments on Earth, the Channel Country of southwestern Queensland and northeastern South Australia, a vast, flat landscape of clay plains, cracked black soil, and braided river channels that flood seasonally but remain searingly dry for most of the year. This region receives very little rainfall, experiences extreme temperature fluctuations between summer and winter, and supports relatively sparse human settlement. The inland taipan's entire known range fits within a relatively limited geographic area of roughly 100,000 square kilometers, large in absolute terms, but representing a small fraction of Australia's continental area. This remote, unpopulated habitat is the single most important factor in the inland taipan's minimal impact on human health. An animal can be as venomous as it likes, but if it rarely or never encounters humans, the medical consequences are minimal. The inland taipan shares its territory primarily with long-haired rats of the genus Ratus, its primary prey, and the seasonal fluctuations of rat populations drive corresponding movements and activity patterns in the taipan population. Outside of dedicated herpetologists, field researchers, and the occasional outback traveler venturing far from established roads, very few Australians ever encounter an inland taipan in the wild. The eastern brown snake presents a dramatically different geographic profile. Its range encompasses the entire eastern seaboard of Australia, which is precisely where the overwhelming majority of Australia's human population lives. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide all fall within or adjacent to eastern brown snake territory. More critically, eastern brown snakes have demonstrated a remarkable tolerance for human-modified landscapes, actively exploiting agricultural land, suburban gardens, urban parks, and the outskirts of cities. They are frequently encountered in backyards in suburban Sydney and Melbourne, on farms and properties across Queensland and New South Wales, and along roadsides and walking trails throughout their range. This combination of potent venom, aggressive defensive behavior, and willingness to inhabit human-dominated environments creates a degree of human-snake overlap that makes the eastern brown snake the most medically dangerous snake in Australia by a very wide margin. This is where the comparison between these two species becomes most scientifically fascinating and most counterintuitive. The inland taipan's venom holds the record as the most toxic of any snake in the world as measured by the LD50 test, the standard laboratory measurement that determines what dose of venom administered to a population of test animals kills 50% of them. A lower LD50 value means a more potent venom. The inland taipan's subcutaneous LD50 in mice is approximately 0.025 milligrams per kilogram, a figure so low that a single bite from a large inland taipan, which may deliver up to 110 milligrams of venom, could theoretically contain enough venom to kill well over 200 adult humans or over 200,000 mice. This figure is roughly 50 times more toxic than the venom of the Indian cobra and 10 times more toxic than the venom of the rattlesnake. It exceeds the toxicity of the coastal taipan's venom, itself one of the most toxic in the world, by a factor of approximately 10. The inland taipan's venom achieves this extraordinary toxicity through a combination of mechanisms. It contains powerful presynaptic neurotoxins that block the release of acetylcholine at neuromuscular junctions, causing rapid neuromuscular paralysis. It also contains procoagulant enzymes that trigger consumptive coagulopathy, a condition in which the blood's clotting factors are consumed in an uncontrolled cascade, leaving the victim unable to form new clots and at risk of hemorrhage. The combination of neurotoxic and hematotoxic effects makes the inland taipan's venom one of the most pharmacologically complex and dangerous in the world. The eastern brown snake's venom, by comparison, has an LD50 approximately 6 times higher than the inland taipan's, meaning it requires roughly 6 times more venom by weight to produce the same lethal effect in test animals. By global standards, this is still an exceptionally toxic venom. The eastern brown ranks among the most venomous snakes in the world by most measures, but it is demonstrably less potent than the inland taipans on a weight-for-weight basis. What the eastern brown snake's venom lacks in weight-for-weight potency, however, it more than compensates for in delivery and consequence. Eastern brown snake venom is powerfully procoagulant. It triggers a rapid and severe consumptive coagulopathy in victims, consuming clotting factors and causing a state of non-clotting blood that can lead to catastrophic internal and external hemorrhage. It also contains neurotoxins and cardiotoxins that can cause cardiac arrest, making the envenomation syndrome from a significant eastern brown bite a genuine multi-system emergency. The eastern brown snake injects venom through exceptionally small fangs relative to its body size, so small that many bite victims initially fail to notice the puncture marks, and a significant proportion of bites may deliver little to no venom in what are termed dry bites. However, when envenomation does occur, the onset of serious symptoms can be rapid, and deaths have occurred within minutes of a bite in documented cases. The behavioral differences between the inland taipan and the eastern brown snake are as profound as their differences in habitat, and they go a long way toward explaining the paradox of why the less venomous snake kills more people. The inland taipan is, despite its alarming common name of fierce snake, a genuinely reserved and non-aggressive animal in natural conditions. In the wild, it consistently attempts to avoid confrontation with humans, retreating into the network of soil cracks, rodent burrows, and dry creek beds that characterize its habitat when approached. Observed wild individuals have shown a consistent preference for escape over confrontation. Bites in the wild are exceedingly rare, so rare that for most of the 20th century, no anti-venom specific to the inland taipan even existed, simply because authenticated bites were almost unknown. When bites have occurred, they have almost invariably involved handlers of captive specimens or researchers making deliberate contact with wild snakes. To date, there are no confirmed human fatalities from inland taipan bites, an astonishing fact given that its venom is the most toxic of any snake in the world. The eastern brown snake's defensive behavior is strikingly different. When threatened, an eastern brown snake frequently adopts a dramatic defensive posture. It raises the anterior portion of its body off the ground into a distinctive S-curve, flattens its neck slightly, and faces the perceived threat directly. Unlike many snakes that prefer to flee, an alarmed eastern brown snake may hold its ground, advance toward the threat, and strike repeatedly with minimal provocation. This readiness to stand and defend, combined with the species' fast movement speed, makes accidental encounters with alarmed eastern brown snakes particularly dangerous. The snake's small fangs deliver venom with a rapid strike that may leave no obvious wound, and the initial bite is often described as feeling like a small scratch or sting, easily dismissed until systemic symptoms begin to develop. The eastern brown snake is also responsible for a large number of bites that occur when people attempt to kill or capture the snake rather than retreating to safety, a dangerous behavioral pattern that accounts for a considerable proportion of serious envenomations in Australia. Wildlife authorities consistently advise that leaving any snake alone and moving away calmly eliminates the vast majority of snakebite risk, but this advice is more easily given than followed when an animal with the eastern brown's reputation appears unexpectedly in a backyard or garden. Both the inland taipan and the eastern brown snake are protected species under Australian law, as are all native snakes in Australia regardless of their venom status. The deliberate killing of any snake, including the eastern brown, is illegal across Australia, a conservation measure that reflects the important ecological roles both species play in their respective ecosystems. The inland taipan, restricted to its remote channel country habitat, faces conservation pressures primarily from habitat modification, altered fire regimes, and the dramatic boom and bust cycles of its primary prey species. Its small natural range makes it potentially vulnerable to land use changes, though current populations appear relatively stable, given the limited human pressure its habitat receives. The eastern brown snake faces a different set of conservation dynamics. Despite being the most medically dangerous snake in Australia, the eastern brown is abundant across its range and, if anything, may be benefiting from agricultural and suburban expansion that creates rodent-rich environments perfectly suited to its dietary preferences. The species faces persecution from humans who kill snakes on site, a practice that is both illegal and ecologically counterproductive, since eastern brown snakes provide substantial rodent control services on farms and properties across eastern Australia. The development of highly effective polyvalent antivenom has dramatically reduced fatality rates from eastern brown bites in Australia, and rapid access to emergency medical care means that deaths, while still occurring, are considerably rarer than in earlier decades, the inland taipan's venom has driven the development of taipan-specific anti-venom that remains effective against inland taipan bites, though the rarity of such bites means this anti-venom has seen very limited clinical use. So, what is the real difference between the inland taipan and the eastern brown snake? At the taxonomic level, both are Australian elapids, products of the same remarkable isolated radiation that made Australia home to more venomous snake species than any continent on Earth. At the venom level, the inland taipan holds the undisputed record, the most toxic snake venom ever measured, capable in a single bite of delivering enough toxin to kill hundreds of adult humans. The eastern brown snake's venom is considerably less potent by laboratory measurement, and yet it kills more people in Australia every year than all other snake species combined. This paradox resolves into a single lesson. Venom potency is only one component of danger. The eastern brown's willingness to inhabit human-dominated landscapes, its defensive aggressiveness when cornered, and its distribution across the most densely populated regions of Australia are the factors that make it deadly. The inland taipan's venom could be 10 times more potent than it already is, and it would still pose a minimal risk to humans, simply because the vast majority of people will never encounter one. Both snakes are products of the same evolutionary pressure, an ancient arms race between Australian predators and prey that has produced venoms of complexity and potency that researchers are still working to fully understand. Both are protected by law, and both in their very different ways demonstrate that the most dangerous animal in any ecosystem is rarely the one with the most impressive headline statistic. Thank you for watching.